What are we looking for, short and long term, from Nebraska quarterback Danny Kaelin? That's in the mailbag. Answers, picks, and predictions next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
All right, welcome in. Happy game day, everybody. It's a game day episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I'm Connor Happer, and there is Mitch Sherman. So we'll have a fun and busy night tonight. Friday night football at Memorial Stadium.
Be great.
For the first time ever, sans Black Fridays, as we've mentioned several times now throughout the week. All right, let's get into the questions. Mailbag Friday, we'll make our predictions and go through our picks, overs and unders, as we go on throughout the show. But let's burn through some of these burning questions that you guys have had all week. We'll start with Andrew from YouTube. He says this. Let's start off hot with a little Daniel Kaelin question. He says, I was disappointed to not have seen Daniel Kaelin play a few snaps last week. Curious to hear your thoughts on his long-term situation behind Raiola. Is he a Brooke Behringer in the level of patience? Is that too much to ask, or do you see him hitting the portal in the next year or two?
Well, it's too much to ask to say that it's going to be a Brooke Behringer situation as far as Danny waiting around and waiting around and waiting around and then getting an opportunity late in his career because of an injury or whatever it might be. That's just not how college football works today. So there's the portal, there's NIL, it's just a different environment. What I can see as realistic is for him to wait through next year, to come back. I think he knew what he was walking into with Dylan Raiola. Dylan's a 5-star. Dylan was going to be the starter this year. We really knew that last December, and it became very evident early in the offseason. So I think it's prudent for Danny Kaelin to see what next year brings and see if he is the heir apparent, if he is the next guy, or is Nebraska moving on to a quarterback who signs this year? TJ Lateef, of course, is committed out of Southern California. Or is it one of the 26 guys? Is it Dayton Raiola? Is it Michael Clayton, who's now on the Huskers recruiting radar from Orlando? Where are they going to look next after Dylan Raiola? Because if that guy can be Danny Kaelin, then maybe it's worth him sticking around to play for his home state school.
As far as him not playing last week, game situation just didn't dictate it. I thought it would, and it really didn't. Nebraska was still trying to put together real drives into the fourth quarter of that game, and so it never really happened. You got in Harburg for a drive or two late, and that was kind of the story. I agree with you, Mitch. You hang around for another year. I don't think that there were any sort of illusions that he felt like he was going to start over Dylan Raiola, or at least there shouldn't have been. So you're seeing how this is going to play out. He'll be here. Raiola will be here next year. Raiola will be here the year after that. And so you could create those couple years of separation with how his red shirt works, and then, theoretically be ready to go. But yeah, I think you would want to probably see that writing on the wall that he is the heir apparent first. And that's how I see this going. But of course, in quarterbacks and the transfer portal and all that stuff, it gets thrown into the wind pretty quickly. So we'll see what happens.
Right now, he would be the odds-on favorite to be the heir apparent. Like if you're making betting odds about who's the next guy, he'd have to have the lowest odds. Not to say that it's going to be him, but it's worth waiting for. I don't think you throw in the towel at this point. So, okay, question on email from Mike. This is actually a question from last week, but we didn't get to it, and I think it's even more appropriate to get to this week. He asks, this is in the wake of Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois, how Notre Dame remained ranked ahead of Northern Illinois after the Irish lost to the Huskies. He wants to know if the college football polls are broken.
Well, I mean, I guess you could argue that they're broken, but they've just been broken forever. It's it's an interesting system that college football uses, and it doesn't always work like that. I mean, I think we can, it doesn't matter how you play it out in your head, but we could do this. You could play that game 100 times over, and in Northern Illinois is probably, not the better team at the end of those 100 games, but they did win the one game. And I understand people are like, oh, well, they won the game, so they got to be ranked higher. That's not how it works. I mean, perception is reality here. And when you get all these voters from across the country weighing in on stuff that they're just kind of, watching a glance of, then, and I'm not even arguing the way, the way the polls look right now. Also, it's been rendered generally useless by the college football playoff rankings as well throughout the year. So that's the other thing to keep in mind.
The polls are broken because they start before the season, and you get Notre Dame ranked 5th, and then Northern Illinois is unranked, and the Irish lose, and it's just difficult because of the way it shouldn't have to be. You could drop them out, but it's difficult because of the way people move teams in response to a win or a loss to have the thing switch that much so that Northern Illinois then becomes ranked ahead of Notre Dame. That's why the college football playoff poll is the right way to do it, where the rankings begin later in the season, but for all purposes of generating conversation and making money and TV, the poll, the AP poll, it starts before the season. So Notre Dame then goes and beats Purdue 200-0 last week, and the Irish are now ranked 17th, and Northern Illinois is 23rd. So whatever. Northern Illinois was off last week. You take it for what it's worth, which is not a lot.
Here's Richard on Twitter. What is something specific that will happen in tonight's game that everyone will be talking about? An oddly specific prediction, TM over there to the guys at 247.
Yep, right, exactly. Oddly specific, strangely specific is how I set it up there in the little locked on menu on the side of our YouTube setup.
Nice.
So I'm going to say that Nebraska does something big and positive in the special teams game. Could be a 50-yard field goal. Whoa, that would get people talking. It could be a long kickoff return from one Ja'Cory Barney. It could be IGC, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, breaking a punt return. I'm supposed to be oddly specific, so I suppose I should pick which one of those things it's going to be.
Yeah, come on, tell me.
Ja'Cory Barney. Barney is going to take one back, maybe not all the way, but he's taking one back into the red zone like we saw in the spring game. That's my oddly specific pick.
Dante Dowdell is going to have a touchdown run in the first half of at least 50 yards. How about that?
Yeah, for sure. That's it.
Is that not specific enough? But should I say 54 yards in the second quarter or something like that?
You're setting yourself up to be wrong. If you want to go 50, no, I think you should leave it a little bit of a range. So if he goes anywhere in that range, you are correct.
Okay. All right. But it'd be really cool if I said that he hits a 54-yarder in the second quarter.
You want to go that way? Go that way. Yeah. All right. 54 yards. Let me write that down. We got it. I got my notebook here. Okay. Question from Josh Tweederson on X. We know Josh. Hello, Josh. Ty Robinson has already tied his career high with 2 sacks. Yes, he has. That is correct. He did it in 2021 and 2022, had 2 sacks in each of those seasons. Last year, he had just 1. How many sacks, Josh asks, will Ty finish with this season?
It's a good moment to catch up, first of all. So Nebraska so far this year has 9 sacks, and they've only allowed 1. Last year as a team, they sacked the quarterback 32 times. Rhule has said in the past that if you get 40, you're probably going to be a 10-win team. Nebraska allowed 29 sacks. They were only +3 in the sack margin last year. They're already +8 to start the season. That'll probably come back to closer to a medium range, but Nebraska has been minus in the sack margin since 2016. The last time they went to a bowl game, coincidentally. Ty's already got a couple. I think he's probably good for 5, 5.5. Somewhere in that range. That's kind of always how I thought it was going to work with the sack distribution along the defensive line. There's just going to be a lot of guys with 3, 4, 5. And I do think it could end up in 40 at the end of the day, just because of how explosive those guys have been.
I think he's playing at another level, and he's going to finish the year with 7.5. Yep. I think Ty Robinson is making himself a lot of money this year. Like if he had gone into the NFL draft last season, 6th, 7th round, I think he could be a day 2 guy this year where he's a 6th-year senior, which isn't great, but for a defensive lineman, okay. It's better than, picking a quarterback or a running back. Running back is the best example as a 6th-year senior. No, D lineman, he's got some longevity. And I think he's making himself money this year, 7.5 sacks. All right, we are going to finish up this mailbag portion in this first segment. And I'm excited about that because I got some stuff I want to get to in the second segment, in addition to the picks and predictions. Ryan on X asks, did you feel like the D-line for Nebraska was over pursuing last week in the first half?
No, I wouldn't say it like that. I would say that Northern Iowa used Nebraska's aggression to their advantage. Like they saw that they were going to be aggressive in the. I wouldn't call it over pursuit by Nebraska. That insinuates that you're doing too much and that you're trying to. Like I don't think it was that for Nebraska last week, but I do think Northern Iowa saw in the game plan. Okay, they're going to do these kind of stunts and move these guys, and they're trying to get up the field on the defensive line. So let's run some misdirection. Let's run some counter. Let's run some, some draw stuff and some delayed stuff. Yeah. And they took advantage of that. Now, did it work? I mean, I don't know. You tell me. They lost 34-3, right? So I don't think I wouldn't call it over pursuit from Nebraska's defensive line.
It didn't lead to any big plays being broken. They had some nice runs. They moved the chains, and I think that's what they came in intending to do. They knew that was a possibility where scoring, getting big shots was probably not in the cards at any point for Northern Iowa. So I'm with you. What you said, over pursuit is a little bit of a different. It's kind of splitting hairs. It's a little bit different than what we saw. They had some misdirection that it was in their game plan to run the ball the way that they did. And I would agree. They used Nebraska's own aggressiveness against it. So, okay. After the break, Matt Rhule went on SportsCenter on Thursday night and he missed a golden opportunity to do what? We will tell you next. All right, Mitch Sherman here, taking a little break to tell you about eBay Motors, passion, drive, and patience. That is the winning formula for winning. It is the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. They've got superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and even more. So if you're into power, speed, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With more than 122 million parts, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. It's got all the parts you need at the prices you want, so it's easy to make your car the MVP. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers.
And I'd like to tell you about Home Field and introduce you, of course, to the Can't Miss Kickoff campaign, which is all about gearing up for this college football season. You need gear. The season is now beginning to change a little bit. Get loaded up for the cooler weather. Let's tell you a little bit about Home Field first, the premium collegiate athletic apparel brand it's based in Indianapolis, focused on creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs, affiliated with more than 180 colleges, of course, including Nebraska. The Can't Miss Kickoff campaign is the thing to pay attention to right now. Delivers everything that you might need for the football season. Like I said, hot weather gear, cold weather gear. We're talking mugs, we're talking koozies, coaches' jackets, and bombers. The football box, you need to get on this thing. Platinum VIP boxes. They can, they'll throw in a hat there. The VIP koozie, the 2024 Platinum Pass that guarantees 20% off and early access, so you get in before those boxes sell out. So that's what you want to get on with our friends from Home Field. The gear is sweet, and as I always mention, It's gear made by college football sickos for college football sickos. I don't know how they feel about me saying this, but I believe it to be true. Maybe I think they would enjoy it based off getting to know the folks from Home Field and their relationship with us. It's been awesome. And you're going to want to get in on this family as well. Check out the website, homefieldapparel.com. Use the code GBR24 and it gets you 15% off at checkout. How about that? Now you're in the family. Thanks for supporting us at the Locked On Network, and thanks to Home Field as well. Check out all of the Nebraska apparel and special items, homefieldapparel.com.
We're back on this game day edition of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Before we get to our picks, we're going to review our picks from last week. I want to mention that I was sitting at home on Thursday night getting ready for some Thursday night NFL football, and I saw Matt Rhule pop up on SportsCenter. Just unexpected. Didn't know this was gonna happen. And there he was with Kevin Nagandi, who's an old friend of Matt Rhule. Nagandi, I believe, was around the Temple program when Rhule was working there, and he's been out to Lincoln to see Nebraska. So they had a good back and forth, a lot of questions, as you'd expect, about Dylan Raiola and various things. And then at the end, Nagandi said to Rhule, so I know you had this routine that you went through on game days when you were in Philly, and then you switched that to the Texas lifestyle, would get into the barbecue when you were in Waco. What is it? What is it in Lincoln? What is it that you do? Is there a spot you hit? Is there a restaurant you go to on game day? And I thought Matt Rhule was going to do it. I thought he was going to give like the ultimate shout out to one of his places in Lincoln. We know that Matt Rhule is like a foodie. He likes to talk about restaurants. He loves to talk about Casa Bovina out in East Lincoln. He likes to talk about Dish. We've heard that before. We've heard him talk about Omaha restaurants like Yoshitomo. I'm like, it's going to be another one. He's going to shout one out here. This was exciting. And he said, well, I would like to walk around downtown on game days, and I'll go into Starbucks and order my black coffee. And people look at me like I'm crazy. Like, what are you doing out here? It's the day of a game. So, okay.
It's a bit.
Rhule had an opportunity to do something here, and he shouted out Starbucks. Starbucks.
To be fair, though, it's pretty funny if you're sitting in that Starbucks in the morning of a game, and Matt Rhule walks in there and he just orders a black coffee, waves to everybody, and leaves. You're probably thinking, is there a camera that I'm missing somewhere in here?
For sure.
What is going on?
NBC's back there. What's going on? No, I think it was good that he was honest, because he's not going to Casa Bovina on game day. He's eating the buffet line at the Nebraska hotel or grabbing something inside the facility. But we got Starbucks, so Matt Rhule likes Starbucks. Great to know. All right. Okay, picks in review from last week, very quick before we get to our Nebraska over-unders for this game. Connor, I got 3 right on the Nebraska props last week. Got Dylan Raiola being over 225. No, you got Dylan Raiola being over 225. I got UNI being over 105. We both got the penalties being under. I got Jalen Lloyd as Nebraska's leading wide receiver in terms of yardage. I did pick the Northern Iowa to cover the 32.5, which was the spread we had on FanDuel. I think it was lower on some other sources, but I got that. You did not. You picked Nebraska to win that game 48-0. In the national games, you had a banner day. You went 4-0 in national games with Bama, Notre Dame, Troy, and Indiana. Those were actually Big Ten games. I was 2-2. You were 1-3 in national games, as was I. So for the year, I've got 11 Nebraska props correct to your 7, but in the national and Big Ten against the spread, you're 11-12-1. I'm 9-14-1. And for the Huskers, I'm 2-1 against the spread. You're 1-2.
Okay.
All right. Take us into what we're talking about with the Huskers this week.
Let's start with the Nebraska props. We always do this one. So why not start here? How about Dylan Raiola passing yardage over or under 225.5 yards? Yep. Mitch.
Yep, I'm over. Dylan's going over this week. The Nebraska pass game is going to get it going.
Yeah, over as well. I think we're probably at least in the 250 range for this week for passing yardage. Now over to the other side, Luke Altmaier, the quarterback for Illinois, passing yardage on him will put the same number out there, 225.5.
Yep, I'm going to say under on this one. I think Nebraska's going to do a good job of shutting him down. Simple as that. He threw for 289 against the Huskers last year. Been putting the ball in the air a lot this season. That is the bread and butter for this Illinois team, is throwing the ball to those two receivers who both rank among the top 12 in the Big Ten in receiving yardage. But I got the Black Shirts getting it done and Altmaier going under.
I'm going over. I think Nebraska does a great job of shutting down the run, and they abandon it early, and they have to go to the pass game. So I think there's some empty yards in there that Altmaier is going to have. Over 225 for me.
Sure, I can see that.
Total points in the first quarter, both sides. The number is from the Mitch Sherman Sportsbook, 13.5.
I'm also saying under on that. I think this is going to be a different start than what we've seen. A little different vibe in Memorial Stadium at the end of the first quarter on Friday night tonight. I like this to go under, and points start coming on the board as we get more into the second half.
Mitch, give me the overs. I think Nebraska starts hot again. I think it is important that they do. I actually think it's important that it's a key for each side to start really well tonight in this game. So I think there's probably a first drive touchdown. Nebraska's scored a touchdown on each of their first 3 opening drives so far this year. So I think they'll continue that trend, and we'll see if Illinois gets anything going as well. Give me over 13.5 points in the first quarter. And then one more before we take a break here and then get to some player props and picks for the week. Actually, we'll hit the player props in this segment too.
Okay.
Nebraska turnovers gained in the ball game, 1.5 over under.
Yeah, I'm going against the grain on this one. I'm going to say Nebraska's over, that Nebraska takes the ball away twice from Illinois, which has turned it over just once in its first 3 games.
I think Illinois will be forced to put the ball in some more dangerous situations. Like I said, I think Nebraska will do a good job against their run. They'll be taking to the air a lot, and the more you take it to the air, the odds are in your favor. I agree with you, Mitch. Over a turnover and a half for Nebraska, just gained on defense.
Okay, 4 overs from Connor in the Nebraska numbers, the team numbers. I'm going to have to set these a little higher next week yep. I like the fact that we are disagreeing on some of this too. All right, some player props for Nebraska. Who will be Nebraska's leading rusher? Give me a name, please, in terms of rushing yardage in this game.
Mr. Dante Dowdell. I don't even think we probably need to be asking this question anymore. This
try to vary it up.
An obvious one.
Yeah, that's what I got too. I got Dante Dowdell. Nebraska's first touchdown in this game comes from who?
It comes from Dante Dowdell.
All right. You can call him your leading tackler also if you'd like. I've got Ja'Cory Barney scoring Nebraska's first touchdown. I mentioned Barney earlier in my special teams, oddly specific pick. So maybe he gets into the end zone. At least I should probably hope so if I want to get those right.
Now,
Nebraska's leading.
Do you get a Ja'Cory Barney touchdown if he say throws it, at some point? What if he throws?
You score the points. It's like fantasy football. Okay. Dylan Raiola only gets the points if it's a rushing touchdown. If Ja'Cory Barney throws a touchdown, nope, the points go to the receiver. Although that would be a nice pick. I would be impressed with that. It would be a losing pick. Nebraska's leading receiver in catches in this game is.
Let's go Isaiah Nair. I think I picked him last week, and it's been hard to figure out exactly where they're going in terms of these, catches and targets and distribution and stuff like that. But I think we'll go back to the top here with Nair.
Is it Nair?
No, it's Nair.
Okay,
it's always been Nair.
All right, I'm also going with Isaiah Nair. He snags about 8 passes in this game and is Nebraska's leading receiver. That would be a single game high. Ramir Johnson had that. That would be a single game high for a Nebraska receiver this year. And finally, the leading tackler for the Huskers.
I'll go in the defensive backfield here. So I think that the first name that comes up there is Gifford. So let's go with Isaac Gifford.
Yeah. I think you're on the right track, but not exactly hitting it. I'm going to Sean Singleton in that category. All right. After the break, we're going to give you our predictions for the score of this game, and we're going to get into some stuff on the Big Ten and national level. That's coming up next.
All right, it's Apper for the FanDuel Sportsbook, and you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. In fact, we're going through all these picks right now. Some of these odds right there for you on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Well, there's also something extra over there with our friends from FanDuel. Now through the end of the weekend or through Sunday, September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with your YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. I love watching the NFL on Sundays, and I love having access to all the games. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel that subscription anytime. Once again, that is 3 free weeks of Sunday NFL Ticket with that $5 bet on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Head to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Download America's #1 sportsbook today. All right, let's do it. Let's make a pick, Mitch. Let's start off with Nebraska, then we'll get to the other games. It's the first ranked-on-ranked game at Memorial Stadium since the UCLA game in 2013. Illinois at Nebraska. 7.5-point favorite are the Huskers tonight on Fox. Who do you like?
I got Nebraska covering. I got a defensive struggle. I've been just a little bit under on my point totals that I've picked for Nebraska all season. Actually had them at 35 last week. They scored 34, but the other 2 weeks just a little bit under. I am going Nebraska to win this game and cover 24-13.
I like Nebraska to get some points tonight, and I like Nebraska to kind of impose their will physically as well. I have them covering. I've liked them by more than the number pretty much consistently throughout the week. Final score: Nebraska 31, Illinois 16. Why not? I like a weird number.
Yeah, that is a weird number. All right, get us into the Big Ten, Connor.
All right, the Big House. USC is a 5.5-point favorite at Michigan. Saturday, CBS. Two weird, brand programs, but they're in the same conference and they're on the wrong television network because the Big Ten and CBS apparently work together now. At least this is what I've been told. 5.5 points for USC. Who do you like?
That's too low of a number. Michigan's a mess. Changing quarterbacks, going with Alex Orji, Davis Warren. Like his numbers, he leads the Big Ten in picks by a long way. So they got to make a change. This is going in a bad direction for Sharon Moore, Michigan. I like USC to cover the 5.5.
It's in the very scary Vegas zone at 5.5, but I agree with you, Mitch. I think the USC defense will be the difference here. And they'll make it work against Michigan. Give me the men of Troy to cover at the Big House. Here's a question. Why are we picking this game? Kent State at Penn State, who's a 49-point favorite at 2:30 on BTN.
Because I just think that 49 is such a huge number that I want to see if you're willing to go 49, like give 49 points and take Penn State. Kent State is terrible. Kent State lost 71-0 at Tennessee last week. So we'll hear about the Vols in a minute. Who do you like?
I do like Penn State. So let's do it. I wouldn't bet this with my own money, but for picks, give me Penn State to win by 50.
Yep. Same. I think it's gonna be like 64-0. So I like the Nittany Lions.
All right, moving on. We got UCLA, who opened up their Big Ten slate last week by losing to Indiana pretty roughly in their own home stadium. They have to go to LSU this weekend. LSU is a 24.5-point favorite, 2:30 ESPN.
Is LSU in the Big Ten? Did they come in with?
Not. I thought about it for a second, though.
Playing USC, UCLA. I don't know what's going on, but speaking of big numbers and covering big numbers, I like LSU to cover the big number and beat UCLA by 25 points or more.
As we know, UCLA, they're in LA. It's them in USC, but they're not in LA for this game. They're in Baton Rouge. I don't like, these are gigantic numbers, so this feels odd, but I think LSU rolls as well. You know, 4 touchdowns seems pretty comfortable to me. Give me the Tigers.
Yeah.
And then we finish it off with the pig, the Floyd of Rosedale. Iowa is a 2.5-point favorite at Minnesota in Minneapolis. This is a great game. This is one of the most fun games every year. Rest in peace to the Big Ten West. This is 6:30 NBC Saturday night.
The pig is on the line, 6:30. I like the fact this is a night game and I can sit and watch it because it's Saturday and Nebraska plays on Friday. I think the wrong team's favored here. Minnesota coming off 2 consecutive shutouts against this Iowa offense on the road. Yeah, I like Minnesota to win. Give me the 2.5 points and I'll be happy.
Not so fast, my friend. Minnesota has struggled with the Hawks in the past.
Sure.
And these games are always going to be pretty close, but I do trust Iowa. I know it's hard to understand, but I do trust Iowa a little bit more in scenarios like this. So give me the Hawks, and I'll be happy to take them by 2.5 or more.
Okay, getting to some national games. Kind of a light slate this week among the national games. Some good ones in the Big Ten. Well, a couple good ones in the Big Ten that we just discussed. I wanted to go with this because it's just such an ACC classic. Stanford at Syracuse. The Q's, Fran Brown. Kind of like to watch Fran Brown. He's a Matt Rhule guy. The Q's off to a good start. They're 2-0. 8.5 point favorites. This is a Friday night game tonight, 6:30 on ESPN. So while you're watching Nebraska at commercials, go check this one out. It starts a half hour before the Huskers. Q's favored by 8.5. Who do you like?
I did the quick back of the napkin math yesterday when I saw that this game would be played. This is the second furthest matchup between conference mates, distance wise. The first one would be Rutgers and Washington. Stanford and Syracuse is next on that list by like a minuscule amount. Give me the Cuse here because I'm on the Cuse. I have no idea why.
Yeah. So this is another weird game that I put on here. Florida, 6.5 point favorites at Mississippi State. This is the SEC game that you don't want to watch on Saturday, 11 a.m. on ESPN. Mississippi State coming off a 41-17 loss to Toledo last week. Like, how does that happen in the SEC? So
this is your sickos game of the week, certainly.
Yeah, and Florida's got like a mess going on in Gainesville. Already talk about coaching changes and candidates and ridiculous things in Gatorland. They are 6.5 point favorites.
I can't look at Florida and see a number that they're favored by and be like, oh yeah, I could get on board with that anymore. Like I just can't do it. So I think this will be a disastrous football game that ends up with Dan Mullen laughing. Mississippi State wins the game with their cowbells after getting blown out by Toledo last week.
Boom. I like Florida. Billy Napier, he makes his last stand. It's happening. He's going to bring this thing back. At least they're not as bad as Florida State. They can say that. Oh, we're not picking the Noles game this week. Utah at Oklahoma State. Classic Big 12 game. The Utes come in as 2.5 point underdogs. This one is 3 p.m. on Fox.
So Utah was the favorite here. There's some concerns about Cam Rising and his health. Doesn't look like he's going to go during this game. So the number flipped pretty much just opposite to the other side right when people started to hear about that news. I am still going to take Utah here. I'm going to take the points that are given to me. I've been on this thing where I'm fading Oklahoma State, and it's worked out to mild success. So give me the Utes to cover the number in Stillwater.
Same. I got it too. Got Utah. I've watched Oklahoma State an unusual amount this year, just because of when the Cowboys have been on, and they're okay. I think Utah wins that game. Last one we pick for the week is a big game. Tennessee, number 6 nationally. Definite college football playoff contender, 7.5 point favorites at 15th ranked Oklahoma. While you're watching that Minnesota-Iowa battle, you can have this one on a second TV, ABC Saturday Night Football, the Vols at their SEC counterparts, OU.
2 schools of thought here. Either A, Tennessee does how they, repeats how they've looked so far this year and wins this game handily by multiple touchdowns. Or Tennessee shows up in a big game and falters in a big moment. It's happened from time to time. I will take the former. I will take Tennessee like in the neighborhood of like 48-13 or something that. Yeah.
Wow.
Josh Heupel. Big number.
Josh Heupel is coming home to just inflict misery on his his Sooners. I agree. Not 48-13 agree, but I think Tennessee wins this one by 2 scores and covers the 7.5 point spread. Okay, one final thing to get to a special question. Big day in Austin, Texas on Saturday. Arch Manning is getting his first start for the Longhorns with Quinn Ewers out because of that injury. He should be back next week for Texas, but Arch is going to get a start. I said his over-under on passing yards against Louisiana Monroe at 365.5. Does he go over or under?
No, let's say under here. Let's stay conservative. Is it possible he throws for 700 and wins the Heisman? The Heisman's chilling at his crib right now. Yes, it's in the cards somewhere, but I'm not picking it. Under.
Kind of because I want it to be over, because I want this to be a conversation topic next week, although I know it won't be until Quinn Ewers throws an interception against Oklahoma or something like that. I'm taking the over. Arch to go over. Yeah, I say he's going to throw for 400 yards on Saturday. So that's it. That's the show. Thank you for listening today. Enjoy the game on this Friday night. We will be back perhaps soon to bring you a reaction show this weekend, or we may be with you Monday, depending on how things go on Friday night. Whenever it is, can't wait to see you next. Thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On College Football Podcast. You can find the link for that show in the description of this show. It is all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.